The advantage to having a county road commission is that we partner with individual units of government like the 17 townships that are in Michigan in order to get the most effective use of the transportation dollar. What I've always said is that road commissions are a fairly good trade-off. That if you go to a smaller organization, you'll wind up where you lose what's known as economies of scale. In other words, instead of buying large orders and large volumes of things and getting deep discounted prices for that, you're now buying smaller units, and so you wind up not getting it. And my experience has been, frankly, that if you're going to have, you need a road maintenance agency in order to operate effectively needs to have about 1,500 miles of roadway under its jurisdiction, given the current funding structure that we have in Michigan. Otherwise, you don't get enough money to support that system. And so, there's a case to be made, frankly, that you should have some banding together of smaller counties. We work with other road maintenance agencies to reduce the cost of our operations. For instance, we have an extensive joint bidding program with the city of Flint, and we're expanding that next year to include the city of Burton. And the things that we're bidding on are virtually all the consumable materials that the road commissions all operate. And for instance, salt, we buy all the salt for everybody in Genesee County, plus we buy the salt for Lapeer and Shiawassee counties road commissions as well. So we get a deep discounted rate because of the bulk and the amount of salt that we buy. If we were a smaller organization or taking a smaller amount, we would not get that deep discounted rate. And the other trade-off is that if you got any bigger than we are, in other words, you consolidated multiple urban counties at a higher level, then you start losing local control. So what I've always said is that road commissions, while they may be an imperfect animal, represent, as far as the maintenance of transportation infrastructure, a pretty good trade-off between economies of scale and local control. If you get a smaller unit that's responsible for less, then you probably get more local control but less economies of scale. If you go higher and make it bigger, then you get more economies of scale but less local control. And so for that reason, the road commissions have worked well in Michigan since 1927. Michigan, when you look at our federal aid dollars that come from the federal government, first of all, we have an entitlement to federal highway dollars because portions of our transportation system, other than the U.S. highway system, the I routes and the U.S. routes, are used to support interstate commerce. That's the rationale for the federal government providing money to fix roads that are under the jurisdiction of counties, cities, and villages in the states. Michigan has been over the history of the fuel tax, which the federal fuel tax, I believe, has been in place since about 1915. We have been a donor state, meaning that we give more money to Washington than what we get back. We currently give, of the money that we send to Washington, we currently get about 92% back. And we will not get all of it back because there are states, like for instance Wyoming, where you have and Montana, and even Hawaii, and Alaska, where you have large road systems, but very, very small state populations. They're mostly those states that have maybe one representative in the House. And those states will always receive more funding to support the federal highway system, because you have to remember that the reason for developing the federal highway system was not interstate commerce, but was rather national defense. That the purpose of the interstate highway system was to allow military personnel and military equipment to be moved rapidly from one coast to another coast, so they didn't have to go through the Panama Canal or even around the southern tip of South America to get from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific coast and vice versa. So the rationale was for military utilization, and the fact that we use it extensively for economic development or economic purposes is an added benefit of having it. Those states that have small populations will always receive more money than what they get. Having said that, we still have an opportunity where we should get more than our current level. My belief is we should be looking at getting about 94 to 95% back from Washington of the money that we send there through the federal fuel tax.
John, I understand Michigan is having a hard time matching the federal funds that we have, the 92% that's coming to us now. Would we be able to match if we got more federal funds? How would that work?
Well, you'd have to have more monies available to match with. So the money that comes from Washington, D.C. comes with strings on it, and one of the criteria for using that money is that you have to provide a match. And generally it's about a 20% match. Okay, there's a couple of things that could happen. One is there's discussion about reducing the level of the match. Okay, the second thing is you increase the state sales or state fuel tax in order to allow Michigan to be able to pay that 20%. In all of these discussions, the thing to remember is that the problem is not how we're slicing the current revenue pie. It's a very simple problem. The problem is simply the pie is not big enough. That we have not increased the size of that revenue pie since 1997. And that our road spending is not keeping pace with the cost of materials. You see road commissions and cities, villages, the Michigan Department of Transportation are under stress. They're reducing the level of service. You're seeing major projects being postponed, not because they're not needed, but simply because on a cost basis. So the solution to the problem is not that we're not slicing the pie correctly. The problem is simply that the pie, the dollar pie, is not large enough to support Michigan's transportation needs.
So I understand that it's the Michigan Department of Transportation that would match that federal aid money coming in. Is that correct?
No, they get the federal aid dollars come in, and the federal aid dollars are split on a 75-25% basis, with the Department of Transportation taking 75% for the state system, and road commissions, cities, and villages getting the remaining 25%, which are distributed either through the municipal planning organizations or the rural planning organizations.
And each of those road commissions or cities and villages would need to match 20% of the share of the federal money that they get.
That's correct. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to have talked to you. And again, there are no easy answers with what the situation we're looking at with our public roads in Michigan. And we will all have to work together in order to maintain an infrastructure that will support economic development in this state.